Howdy, y'all. Professor Parks, PhD here. I have just concluded watching the interview between Culture Cats, the once in future Catz, and Will Duffy. And so I wanted to give my thoughts because, well, I do that. Howdy, Roshin. Howdy, Maya. I was actually planning on uh, potentially going live later to give my initial thoughts on the celestial theodolite that the Aether community has put forward. I'm going out of town for the next 3-4 days, so I won't have the opportunity to go over that like I promised someone I would do this coming Sunday. So, but I felt that after that interview, I felt that I needed to address certain things. Um, Mr. Duffy, and again, I call you Mr. Duffy because we have not been introduced, and um, I would like to. I would like to have a conversation with you. I would like to have a civil conversation with you. I've heard from a couple of people that you have sent me an email. I have checked and have been looking for it, but I have unfortunately not got it. So perhaps I have not given when I gave my email to you in the comment section, perhaps I miswrote it. But my email again is, and Luna, you're not helping. My email again, is it in here? No, it's in here. My email is in the ticker, and it is parksj762 at gmail.com. And howdy, everyone. Howdy, Al, Coca Rose, Turing Test. So thank you all for being here. And so again, Will, I have not received your email. I've checked my spam folder. So again, it's entirely possible that I gave you the wrong email before. So please hit me up there. I'm also going to try to find your email on the final experiment. I don't know why it didn't occur to me to look there before. And in your response in my defense, I guess, for as to why I have been making certain assumptions about what you have said, I'm doing it based on my own experience and what I've seen on your website. I'll get to that in a second. But you're right. I haven't been feeling overly comfortable about it, and I should have asked you, but because it didn't occur to me to go to the final experiment, I did not know how to ask you other than to put out those videos. Now, was it right for me to go off like I did without talking to you? I'm becoming of the situation that no, that wasn't right for me to do that, to bring you into the conversation specifically. I'm getting a friend request. I thought PhD Tony was already my friend. So let me address a couple quick things very quickly. I noticed that you said that that young Earth creationists, your views on the age of the Earth are not important. I would beg to differ because it goes to any sort of accusation, any sort of thing, any sort of claim that you will make that says that you are on the subject or on the side of science, which I know you have made because I've seen that abortion video. You have said that we need to follow the science when it comes to denying a woman the right to choice. I find that objectionable. Not just the anti-choice thing, but the fact that you are claiming to follow science and yet have honestly, I'm disappointed because you say that not your field. Granted, that's awesome. You say that it's not important. But if I'm losing my train of thought. If you follow the science, then the age of the universe, the age of the Earth, is not an opinion. It is not an argument. It is pretty settled in terms of the approximate age. There isn't a whole lot of error bar to 4.5 billion years old. And for those in the comment section who are like, he doesn't say that the Earth is 6,000 years old. Okay. How old does he think? So, Will, I will email you and maybe we can have this conversation. But how old do you think the Earth is? If the answer to that question is not in the billions of years, then I still have an issue. Again, if you want to state that the Earth is 6,000 years old or 10,000 years old or a 250,000 years old, I am perfectly okay with that, so long as you make the acknowledge that this is a belief that is not based on fact in any way whatsoever. So there's that. That was more than I wanted to go with. And to say you weren't there, we weren't there, so we can't possibly know, that is 100% a flat Earth argument. Another question that I have for you: how long have you been in the flat Earth community? How long have you been in this conversation? Because you make statements that are contrary to, I think, everyone's experience, in the sense that you say that, oh, this time we've given them data that's been directed to them specifically. Wally has been doing that. Toon has been doing that. I Can Science That has been doing that for years. And yet nothing has really changed. Now, I have to say that if there are people, if Patricia Steer is actually changing her mind and is publicly stating that the Earth is in fact a globe, that she was a part of a cult, then I will say that the FTE has moved the needle. And I want to make clear, I do not think that the TFE was a waste of time or a waste of money, although I have separate opinions on that, particularly given that you are a pastor rather than just a random person off the street. And yes, I do hold you to a different standard because you are a pastor than a random person off the street when it comes to things like money, because the Bible has some very specific things to say about charity and about monetary wealth and holding on to monetary wealth. So, howdy, Clive. The doctors are in the house. Howdy, Professor Phil Bell. So where should I go with that? So again, I apologize if I mischaracterize you in terms of how old you think the Earth is when I said that you think the Earth is 6,000 years old. But if you think it matters, if you think that I believe that there is a difference between you thinking that the Earth is 6,000 years old and 10,000 years old, then are we really being genuine about this conversation? Because you have to know that is the actual value is around 4.5 billion years old. So a few thousand years is not overly important to me. And what you described is the same thing that was described by Dr. Jason Lisle in his book, which is commonly known, if I remember correctly, as Last Tuesdayism, of God made it that way. He makes the universe look older than it actually is, which is a cop-out and is not a scientifically valid argument. So again, I reject the idea that you are following the science. You also characterize this discussion as a discussion, that you have arguments on both sides. Make no mistake, there is no argument for a young Earth that is backed by science. None. There is exactly the same amount of evidence for a flat Earth scientifically than there is for a young Earth. And if you dispute that, then you really need to start publicly debating folks on this topic, specifically PhD Tony. And not just having a conversation, having a debate, because this is something you apparently believe in, even though you claim that apparently it is not important. I find it curious why you think it isn't important, because again, young earth creationism is not scientific, it's biblical. And if it's biblical, then you are taking the Bible literally in one form or another. And I also and I also reject this notion that 6 days is not 6 days. That is preposterous. It brings me to my website. Okay, you have taken over your church, sure. But it still says that. The website still says that. So if I check tomorrow or next week, is it going to still say that? You now know that this is an issue. You now know that when you were saying that the earth was literally created in 6 days, that is scientifically wrong. This is not an opinion. This is not an argument. This is scientific fact. This is the evidence to support a earth that was created in 6 days is strong, exceedingly strong. And again, there's no scientific evidence to support that the earth was in any way created in 6 days, 6,000 days, or 6,000 years, 10,000 years. In actual fact, there is evidence when we're talking about creation of planets. We do have data that suggests core accretion, the process via which planets are created, lasts somewhere between 10 to 15 million years old, or million years. So again, if that is still on your website in a week or so, then I find your excuse to be less than compelling. You are the pastor of that church. I don't know if you're the head pastor of that church or just simply a pastor of that church. And you do have my condolences on the passing of your previous pastor. I was not aware of that. And I do want to take a moment and give you my condolences about that. So I don't know if you are the head pastor or whatever, but you certainly have power over what is said on your website, what is stated on your website. So you can very easily change it. So I'm curious whether or not you will, because if you are a scientist, that is actually the case. Now, what else did I want to say on this subject? He believes, again, PhD Tony would be much better at this than I would to argue this. As far as I am aware, there is no evidence of a global flood. There is evidence of flooding around the globe. I would not be surprised if at some point some portion of the earth was underwater because of flooding. But as far as I know, there is no evidence of a global flood where the entirety of the earth was underwater. I will have a quick email check, or the Googles, to see whether or not there actually have been marine fossils found on Everest. I actually don't know. I've never really thought about it. And the fact that Evil Clive is a palindrome, Tony says that the existence of uplifted marine sediments does not indicate synchronous flooding. Okay, so it's as I've thought. There is no evidence to suggest a global flooding, a scientific evidence to suggest global flooding. So, where was I going with that? So, yes. So I think that flat Earth is worse than than young Earth creationists. As I've stated previously, I think YEC is, in fact, worse than flat Earth because of its religious motivation. There are some flat earthers. I shouldn't be hypocritical because I don't have the numbers, but what I have found is that there is a non-zero number of flat earthers who are not Christian. I believe one of them is currently in the chat if Stephanie is still here. However, I have yet to meet a single non-religious, non-Christian young Earth creationist. Never met one. And the fact that it is faith-driven and it masquerades as being a sensible argument or masquerades as being scientific is worse than flat Earth, in my opinion, because that is conflating the realms of spirituality and science, which I am wholeheartedly against. Because when you start doing that, when you start using, and oh, by the way, it's interesting that you say that the Earth, or that the Bible does not say that there is no Bible verses that claim one way or the other what the shape of the Earth is. I find that curious because you just had a Hebrew Bible scholar on your channel to argue that the Earth is that the Hebrew Bible does not, or rather Jewish faith does not think that the Earth is flat. So if that were true, then why have him on at all? Because if the Bible has nothing to say about it, then you can't really prove that the Bible doesn't support a flat Earth by illustrating a negative. And so, or at least not the bits that I saw, that was not what was going on. And by the way, Jerusalem is not the center of the world. First off, if you have a non-bounded 2D surface, there is no center. It makes no sense for there to be a center other than an arbitrary one that you yourself define. So the fact that your guest said that Jerusalem was the center of the Earth is very problematic, which I'll get to in a second. The other thing is you claim, and again, PhD Tony would be the person to speak to on this, you claim that the first landmass, or he claimed that the first landmass was Pangea. As far as I'm aware, that's not accurate. Because I know, well, evidence suggests strongly that the Earth at one point was entirely molten. And so, and cooled and then water was deposited on it. So claiming that the first continent or landmass is Pangea seems to be a little arbitrary or non-factual. Now, let's go back to why I think this is important. Yeah, there have been 8 supercontinents. Was Pangea the first one? And was there anything prior to the first supercontinent? Thurston, I could be wrong, but he claimed that it was the center of the Earth. But he claims that it's the center of Pangea. If that's the case, I would like to know how he came up with that determination. Again, quantitatively, rather than just saying, hey, look, it looks like it's at the center of the thing. Because he did say of the supercontinent. Oh, did he say of the supercontinent? Okay. I apologize. I did not mean to misrepresent. So, again, my apologies if he said it was the center of the supercontinent, which I still find problematic. And he said that science, and he's like, thank you for pointing out, and then he thanked, I think, science for confirming that that Jerusalem was the center of things. That is the part that I have an issue with. Because when you say something is the center of things, you are implying that that thing is special. That thing holds a higher position in some regard. In this case, we're talking about religion, so we're talking about morality. And so this fosters the notion that Jerusalem is the holiest place on earth. One, that's kind of insulting to any Hindus out there. And two, I seem to remember a certain event, few of them actually, where many people died because someone held that viewpoint. I believe they were called the Crusades. Sorry, I'm being petty, but I feel very strongly about this. That shouldn't matter. I will tone down the pettiness. When people make these claims and attempt to give some kind of authority to it, that becomes dangerous. Because as I've said, one of the pastors in your church believe that because you are righteous, you are just in your actions, whatever those actions may be. How does one feel that how does one come to the belief that they are righteous? By saying that they are correct, that they are the center of things. And again, maybe I'm mischaracterizing you, Will, but do you believe that Christianity is correct? Because it seems to me that that is what this is. Well, in his case, that is what this is. He is justifying the Hebrew belief by this. Also, again, it comes back to, and I apologize, I'm all over the place. Again, it comes back to the question as to whether or not how long you've been in or how long you've been in the flat Earth conversation, because you claim that people come to Christianity through flat Earth and not the other way around. That is inaccurate. I have seen that is inaccurate. These are fundamentalist Christians who believe that the earth is flat and then use Christianity as a cover for it, as a justification for it. Which ties into my next point. What I have found before in history is that religion is often used in a way to rationalize and to excuse otherwise immoral behavior. What is it? Gold something in God, basically where us white people went over to where the brown people were, killed them and took their gold. That was justified because God said it was justified, or at least some claimed it would be. Now it seems that there seems to be a flip where religious folks are claiming that science backs them up, that science supports the view of the Bible. It does not. And that is an extremely, extremely dangerous thing to put out there. And I don't care if it's not on his YouTube channel. Just because it's not on YouTube doesn't mean he should not be called out on this. Because he's probably saying it somewhere. Again, I'm making an assumption. But to think that he's not making these claims somewhere to someone, facts, not in evidence. Those facts are not in evidence. But I don't agree with the sentiment that he should not be called out on these things because he is not putting it out there on YouTube. Because we don't know if and where he's putting it out there. Therefore, he needs to be called out on this. Again, his demeanor changed. I don't know if it was just me, but his demeanor changed quite a bit when we moved to young Earth creationists rather than to flat Earth. which I found to be interesting. And again, he on multiple occasions said that the young Earth argument isn't important. He would rather move on to more important things, which apparently the shape of the Earth is. If that is the case, then I think you haven't been paying attention. It's not that people thinking the Earth is flat is the issue. It's the fact that people are claiming that the Earth is flat and attempting to justify it scientifically, which is what young Earth creationists also are trying to do. Creationism, as far as I know, has no scientific basis. There is no evidence that life can suddenly exist. There is the claim that there is no evidence to suggest a rock became a chimp, if I may paraphrase Hovind. But there is also no evidence that life can just spontaneously pop into existence. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to make that argument, then you cannot state that creationism has a scientific basis. And that is ultimately the point with the debunks. And this is why I feel so passionately about it. And this is why I was, quote, on Will's ass during in that comment section, is that we as a debunking community need to be cognizant of who we normalize and who we don't. I will say it. I am not entirely opposed to cancel culture. Cancel culture does have merit. Now, can it be taken too far? Of course it can. But to this point, we need to be cognizant as a science or as a debunking community based on scientific inquiry. We need to be very cognizant of whom we support by giving them theme songs. Let me put this another way. So the JWST, James Webb Space Telescope, there was a bit of a kerfuffle about its name. So James Webb, remarkable scientist, remarkable engineer, and he did tremendous things for African-American scientists, and of course he led the Apollo program. He should be, there are many things for which he should be lauded for. However, he was also the administrator during the Lavender Scare, which he had to be aware of because he was the chief administrator of NASA. And yet he did nothing. Did he perpetuate it? We don't know. Did he influence it anyway? We don't know. But what we do know is that he didn't denounce it. And so there was a movement, I myself am a part of it, or was a part of it, to get NASA to change the name of JWST, because not that he shouldn't be, not that because of this one thing, he should be, thought completely disregarded or what have you. It's that I don't think that he was worthy of having a telescope named after him, which will become a household name. That is a higher standard. I do not believe, again, I may be repeating myself, but I do not believe that the final experiment was a waste of time. I believe that it did a lot, has done, was meaningful, and has done a lot of good. I don't think it's final in any way whatsoever. I have a problem with him calling it final. I have a problem with people saying that flat Earth is dead because of it, because while there are names in flat Earth that are denouncing, which again is something new. I have never seen someone at that level. I've seen people move away from the flat Earth before. Ranty, for example, STST for another example, Raichi is another example. These are people who have moved away from the flat Earth because of the work of debunkers in this community, which until the TFE, Will was not a part of. So I don't believe that FTFE, TFE um, is a waste of time or a waste of money. It was something that needed to be done. It is what I'm aggravated about is the idolation that Will Duffy has done has been given because of it, and the aspects of it that are and saying that it's final. Honestly, if anyone should be held up as the hero of the TFE, it's Dave McKeegan. He has done the work. I have seen more videos by him, and maybe again this is bias. This is just selection bias. But I've seen more work by him that has been done rigorously in a scientific way to demonstrate why the 24-hour sun, as it was observed, puts a nail in the coffin of flat Earth. Not the final nail, but definitely a nail. And so if we are going to talk laud TFE, why doesn't Dave become the face of it? From my understanding, and what will Ntune and MC Tune, and what was it? Just lost it. And I think Will even stated Duffy paid it, or not Duffy, McKeegan, Dave paid his own way. Yes, Duffy set up the whole thing, but McKeegan bought his, paid his own way and went down there. So why aren't we really celebrating Dave McKeegan in this? Why are we not having interviews with Dave McKeegan about this, with his experience of the flat Earth experiment or the final experiment? Again, these are the things that prompt why I am so vocal about this, or have been so vocal about this, why I have been so emotionally charged about this, is because I honestly think giving air to someone who believes that the Earth is however many thousands of years old is dangerous. And I'm sorry, Mr. Duffy, if you don't think it's that important, I do. And I really appreciate you giving me the permission to say that I can move on and talk about more important things. The fact that you talked about your conversation with Jaron and that his son, that Jaron told you that he is not he doesn't have to raise his son as a flat earther. That is the most evangelical bullshit I've even, well, no, that is in line with evangelicism. It's, here's testimony of what I have done to save this person from something that is wrong or deplorable. Is it good that that happened? Yes. I wholly disagree that you felt that you needed to bring that up in any way whatsoever. There's I believe there's a Bible passage about the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. So these are the things that aggravate me. These are the things that, this is why I'm on his ass. Because these things need to be called out by somebody. These things need to be pointed out. Just because he doesn't think that these things are important, just because he thinks that these are opinions that need to be argued, is irrelevant. It is the same thing if he had said that, and I'm going to say it, just because somebody says that the Earth is flat as an opinion doesn't make it so. I guess it's the hypocrisy of it all. There has been so much vitriol and so much personal attacks and things of that nature against the flat Earth There's been so much passion against the flat earth among the debunking community, and yet someone who spouts beliefs that are just as ludicrous as flat earth is given a pass. So, and I can't stand for that. Am I a hypocrite? Probably. Definitely. Somewhere that I'm just completely missing. But that is what needs to happen. I've said it before and I'll say it again. What needs to happen is, I would love, not needs to happen. I don't want to say that I don't want to order people around. I would love to see FTFE and Will debate with the same fervor that FTFE has for everyone else. You know, it's the praising of him as, you know, the savior of the flat earth argument that I find to be reprehensible. Even if you look at, going back to Genesis, and again, I know I'm all over the fucking place. Even if you look at the ordering of things within Genesis, what was created when, that has also been scientifically falsified. I can't go on. And I've thought about doing a video on that, but again, I'm not a geologist or a geophysicist. This is not I try not to speak on things as an authority when I am not an authority. But from my understanding, the ordering of Genesis has been already debunked. So Genesis in itself is not scientifically accurate in any way whatsoever. His assertion that the Bible has been the Bible is a good historical document. I've heard from a few different biblical scholars that is a incorrect statement. That is not factual really in any way. Does it relate to certain events in history? Yes. But does it get the timing wrong? Yes. Does it get the players wrong? Yes. Herod's census did not occur when the Bible said it did. It probably did not occur during Christ's lifetime. So claiming that the Bible is somehow historical and using that as justification for expressing that biblical viewpoints are scientifically accurate, and let's not make a mistake. I know you didn't say that they were scientifically accurate, but you are saying that they're accurate. Also, let me address something else. Again, I ask you how long you've been in this flat earth community, because if you've been in it for any length of time whatsoever, the phrase, "this is my opinion, but I could be proven wrong," is 100% FE. That has been said many, many times by many, many flat earthers. Has it been said by Nathan Oakley? No, of course not. Has it been said by Quantum Racer? No, of course not. I think Flatzoid has. A number of flat earthers that I've engaged with in Discord servers have said it. And, you know, people in the chat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but am I wrong? Have you not heard flat earthers say, "Well, this is my opinion, but I could be proven wrong, or I could be convinced that I'm wrong"? Oops, wrong one. He's a pussycat, just like MC when it comes to keeping things. Yeah, so FTFE definitely blows his top more than Toon does, which is why I said that I would love to have see a debate between Mr. Duffy and FTFE. Flatzoid comes off as a person lacking intellect. No, actually, well, my opinion on Flatzoid is that Flatzoid is extremely clever, but not very intelligent. And I think that he is deceitful. I think his main tactic is deceit. He will lie his face off in order to attempt to make his point, or to make it seem as if his viewpoint is the correct one. Stephanie, you're not spinning. Okay, if you say so. Again, I want to clarify this. Do I think Will Duffy is the enemy? I actually I am of mixed mind on that. Again, I don't want to misrepresent him. Again, I'm only going off of what I have seen from his website and from sermons from his church. I have never heard him speak on this directly. And so I will ask, Mr. Duffy, do you believe that homosexuality is a thing? Or excuse me, do you think that homosexuality is a sin? Do you believe that transgender is a thing? Meaning that, do you believe that a transgender woman is in fact a woman? If you say that you are, if the answer to that question is yes and no, then I have to say that you are my enemy. I love you just as much as I would love anybody else, but you, sir, are my enemy. You are my enemy in the fact that you believe that you claim that science states that life begins at conception and that abortion should be withheld from women and trans men everywhere. That is unbelievably harmful and unbelievably selfish. We do not, as Christians, have the right to legislate any sort of morality. And when it comes to abortion, I challenge you to support your position theologically, that life starts at conception, that the spirit is imbued into the child at the moment of conception. And I would also like you to be very specific as to what phase of prenatal development or natal development conception actually is. Now, maybe there is a scientific point that says, okay, boom, when sperm hits egg, that is conception. If that is the case, then I will retract that statement and I will go. But I would like to know whether or not you have biblical evidence for stating that life begins at conception. So yes, in these ways, I believe that you are in fact my enemy. Do I think you some ill fate should come to you? Of course not. Do I hate you in any way? Of course not. As I said, you are my enemy, but I love you as much as I love anyone else, including my loving myself is another thing entirely. Is a complicated issue entirely. So yeah, I do think that you are my enemy on these issues. When it comes to flat Earth, no, you are not my enemy. But as someone who says that they are following science, and yes, I am going to keep pounding on that point, is that you are scientifically minded, that this was a scientific experiment, that you continue to claim these things even though you are in one way or another a young Earth creationist, then yeah, you are my enemy in that sense. Well, at least you are certainly not my ally. So I don't think Buffy has the balls to take me on. I'm not looking for a confrontation with Mr. Duffy. And actually, he has said that he has I invited him to email me so that we can have a beginning of a conversation, and possibly I could have him on the my show. He has told others, and in that interview, he has stated that he emailed me a response. I unfortunately did not get it. And again, it could very well be that the email that I provided him was inaccurate. The email is now scrolling across the screen. So if Mr. Duffy can, if you can see that, please feel free to reach out to me again. Again, I will also try to attempt to find your email address at the final experiment, and I will email you as well. So I don't want this to be some kind of confrontational. Despite my tone, I do not wish this to be confrontational. And yes, I do believe that that Will is very well mannered. He is not prone to outbursts. He is certainly not prone to physical or to emotional attacks or personal attacks or anything of that nature. Okay, great. That means that he is being a civil human being. Should he be praised for this? I don't think so. Great. He's not a dickhead. When is that? I mean, seriously, he's not a dickhead. When is that something to be pointed out? Why is this something that is laudable? Oh, great. He's not a raging asshole. Yay. So yes. And also he's done so much for he debates well against flat earthers. So does Toon. So does Craig. That's not a high bar. Again, why is this laudable? Why is it laudable that he debates flat earthers well? Because we have so much evidence that debates have swayed this conversation one way or another. So yeah. Again, I don't understand the praise. I am also not suggesting he be condemned. I'm also not suggesting that he be denounced. I am suggesting, when I talk about cancel culture, what I am suggesting is he not be highlighted. He not effectively, don't talk about him. Don't bring him up other than to say Will Duffy was the one who sponsored this. Dave McKeegan was the one who did the work. Toon was the one who did the work. Jaron flipped the script because of it. He does not need and should not get praise for this because of how he looks at other scientifically other things in the physical reality that have strong physical support. So I remember about the whole not being an asshole thing. Immediately when I think about that, I think of David Tennant. David Tennant got honored at an LGBTQ event somewhere. I can't even remember what the honor was. And when he got it, his first sentence was, "I don't even know why I'm getting this award." Because effectively, I mean, I'm not an asshole. So why am I being praised for not being an asshole? It was being good to people, recognizing their identity, recognizing their basic human rights. This is not something that should be surprising. This is not something that should be rare in any way. It should not be laudable. And it's only laudable because of people who don't express these views, because of people who deny people their basic human rights, because of people who deny their identity. What I would be interested in would be a Christian's reaction if they were told, all right, all religions are acceptable except Christianity. There is only two religions. There is Judaism and Islam. There is a synagogue you can go to. There is a mosque you can go to, but there is no church because Christians don't exist. To me, I see that very much as an analogy of the transgender community. You are denying something that is an inherent piece of identity, and that is dangerous. That is harmful. So yeah, that's what I've got to say on that. Let's go to some of these comments. If the TFE didn't ever happen, we would still be none the wiser. Science did not advance because of FTF. I mean, yeah, but that wasn't really the point of TFE, and that was, and I do agree with Will or Mr. Duffy on that point. Is he had a clear goal of what he wanted to do and what he wanted the experiment to be, which was to illustrate there were certain expectations of the flat Earth model, certain implications, and they devised tests to falsify them. As you should, as a good scientist should. Science runs on the concept of there being implications to theory, and then doing an experiment to validate or invalidate that implication, or at least quantitatively investigate that implication. And so, yeah, that wasn't what he TFE did not advance science really in any way, but that's not what his goal was. That's not what his goal was. The Copium Emporium, howdy. Will has brought money and people skills to the table. He is tight-lipped about his other beliefs. He is tight-lipped about his other beliefs because he is fully aware of how they will be received within this community. As if you watch the interview with Culture Catz, the Once and Future Catz, you could see it in the audience, in the comment section, which I was glad to see. I was not exactly glad to see Will Duffy apologists, but I was glad to see that a number of people were pointing out that his views on the age of the universe and creationism are inaccurate. And honestly, I would also like to see Culture Catz debate Mr. Duffy on creationism with the same verve and rigor that he does with anybody else. I also find it interesting that he says that that Will or Mr. Duffy was praising himself for doing his research on Dr. Alonso, not doing his research on what Alonso states, not the argument itself, but on Dr. Alonso himself. I call him Dr. Alonso because I have not seen evidence that he does or does not have a degree of one sense or another. Actually, I've seen evidence that he does, in fact, have a doctorate in computer science from somewhere. I haven't verified that, but I point this out because he himself is highlighting, Mr. Duffy is highlighting that he investigated the man and not the argument. Shouldn't one have praised oneself about investigating the argument and left the man alone? Because honestly, it doesn't matter who's saying this. It doesn't matter who says the earth is flat. It doesn't matter who says that the earth is 10,000 years old, 6,000 years old, or that human beings were created by a divine being. It does not matter who says it. It matters that it's being said. And it matters that it's being said in a way that is scientific, or being presented as scientific. That is what matters. So it's all of these little things. And again, I freely admit I could be looking for these things and I could be ignoring everything else. But it's these little things that happen. Is the fact that he talked about researching the man and not the argument. The fact that he had to mention, he had to mention the testimony of Jaron and his son won't be raised as a flat earther. These to me are red flags because I have personally dealt with evangelicals. When I was younger, I was in high school. I dated a Christian, and I went to her youth group because, well, you know, she had a hoo-ha that I really liked. And so I went and I sat there, and this gentleman who was very nice, every other time, very nice, very well spoken, seemed very well meaning. He sat there one night, looked me dead in the eyes, and gave a sermon about how one should not be unequally yoked because that person will lead you down the path of damnation and into hell. And if you aren't catching this, he basically was telling me that I was evil and that I was bringing my girlfriend down to hell with me. He did it in a very polite way. I have to give him that, but he still did it. So yes, I have been on the receiving end of this bullshit. I'm not saying I'm persecuted, but I've seen this firsthand. I've seen this nice guy thing. And I know what the red flags are. So that, yeah. Oh, and by the way, I never went back because her hoo-ha wasn't enough. It wasn't all that, you know, it wasn't worth that bullshit. So, yeah. How about I can verify I have a PhD in bacon theology? I have a certificate somewhere. I trust you. I completely trust you about that. Yes, and I agree. And actually, this goes on to another thing. Actually, I want to talk about this. Yes, the thing that I dislike the most about Last Tuesdayism is that it shuts down any argument. You cannot argue that position at all because it is. It's like arguing with a 5-year-old. Why did you do that? Because, or I guess arguing with, as a 5-year-old, arguing with an adult. Why did you do that? Because. But why? Because there's no argument there. So there is no progression of thought. There is no learning. Well, yeah, there is no learning. That is why I can't stand Last Tuesdayism. This is actually something else I wanted to talk about, but probably in a different stream. And considering I'm giving myself yet another headache, I probably don't know how much longer I'm going to be on this stream. But I'm reading this book that Eric E., friend of the channel, sent me. I think I was aware of it, and of course, I don't remember the title of it. But it's talking about the science denialism and the not the death of expertise, but the rejection of experts. And one thing that I thought was very novel, at least I've never heard this argument, is that the author states that one of the reasons for this rise in the denying of scientific experts is because of democracy, is because democracy on its face tells us that we are all equal, and so therefore our opinions and our viewpoints are all equal. I would change that to say that all of our viewpoints are valid. I certainly would say that, and I support that. Anyone's viewpoints, even those I find to be completely reprehensible, are valid because they are coming from a place, hopefully, of honesty. This is what you have experienced. This is your life experience, and this has led you to what you to the views that you have. That is completely valid and should not be ridiculed or disparaged in any way. However, that does not make those viewpoints equal, particularly when it comes to science. someone who has the expertise, someone who has the PhD behind their name, and yes, and I don't care if I'm going to be appeal to credentials. I don't care. What that tells you is that anyone with those little with an alphabet soup behind their name has dedicated their lives to the study of that subject. So that is at least the first check mark to tell you that they might actually know what they're talking about. Does it guarantee it? No, it doesn't. But it's a very strong indicator. Does it prove that the person knows what they're talking about? No, it doesn't. It just simply provides very strong evidence to that. So to deny that what someone says who has these alphabet soup behind their name, to deny what they're, or dismiss it out of hand because you heard something on a YouTube channel that was contrary, or you heard someone else on a YouTube channel say it so, or you even heard another PhD in, say, computer science tell you about the physics behind how the Earth was created and that the Earth is flat. Those two things are not equal. Those two opinions are not equal. I did not devote my life to these, to the pursuit of academic knowledge, to be dismissed out of hand because someone else simply just disagrees with it. I don't think PhD Tony went through all of the work that he has done in his life for Will Duffy to tell him that the age of the Earth is not important. Oh, by the way, howdy score? Where are you? Oh, there he is. What gets me is when a student gives an answer, I check the depth of their understanding by asking them to explain, and they say, I don't know. Another anecdotal thing to combat Will's anecdotal thing. I was on a voice chat on Earth Awakenings, and a person there said the story that their kid went to a Christian school, and that not one but two of their teachers were flat earthers, and would tell people, the students, in private that they were flat earthers, but would not admit that to the rest of the school. They would not talk about it in front of their other teachers. Again, this is an anecdotal story. This is an anecdotal story. Take it for what you will. But to me, that even if it's true, and if it's only at one place, that's one place too many. So, but yes, we are not equal. I wouldn't go so far as to say that some work and some just don't, but because I think that those words are a bit, or those attitudes are a bit loaded. But what I will say is that, or maybe not, some people have a natural talent for things that is biologically driven. We are not equal in that way. My capacity to understand mathematics is far different and far poorer than Clive's ability to understand mathematics. That's just a fact. That's something that I've had to accept. When you are, one of the things that Vic was telling me about was, when you're in high school and you are a high achiever or gifted or whatever the fuck it is, you very often feel like you are the smartest person in the room because you are a better student than everyone else in the room, and you may in fact be smarter than everyone else in the room. That is definitely not the case once you get to academia. I mean, you might still think you are, and in some case, someone has to be, but the caliber of minds at the academic level is demonstrably better than anywhere else on the street. not just because of the work, although that is pretty vital. It's also because they are just more naturally inclined or have a greater passion for the subject matter than anyone else. That is what got them there. That means that they are not equal. This is also, well, no, I'm not going to tie that in because I was going to go on a rant about meritocracy, but I will find it funny that the same administration who touts meritocracy fucking has Lynn McMahon as the wife of the president of WWE as the Department of Education. I find that to be ironic. Mr. Patel, who is, and I could be very wrong about this, but from my understanding, Mr. Patel has no legal or has no experience in law enforcement or the law, and he's in charge of the FBI. So this idea of a meritocracy, all right, anyway, that's another subject entirely. I've also talked about that in a different stream in terms of a meritocracy and academia, and the fact that this anti-DEI sentiment is wrong-headed, and this representation and the representation of what DEI actually is also wrong-headed. But again, not the point of my this stream. To be a good mathematician requires natural talent and hard work. And yeah, you can only do that by working harder. As I tell my physics students, particularly when I was teaching at Emory, when most of my students were pre-med, they would come to me and be like, hey, can you suggest a way that I can memorize these things? I'm like, well, you can't, because physics, like mathematics, can only be done by doing. Every problem is different. The ways you approach those problems is a bit similar. There's definitely a smaller amount of tools to use to solve a problem than there are problems in the world. And it's that is what you have to memorize. And that's where the natural talent comes in. To be able to look at a problem and be able to divine or work out just by looking at it what tools you need to attack it, that itself requires natural talent. The more talented you are at it, the easier you are at it. But if you have enough passion, you can make it work. Which is getting to the point that I originally wanted to make was, I am not saying that the layperson cannot do physics. I am not saying that the layperson cannot do math or understand the science behind why the Earth is the shape it is. And the exact opposite. I think people are capable of doing this. Mr. Duffy is capable of looking into a science textbook or scientific journals to figure out whether or not Mr. Raw's claim about fossils is correct. I don't know what websites he checked, but my recommendation to him and anyone else is stop checking websites. Check science texts and check journal articles. That is the best. That is the best way. If you are truly interested in learning these things, then you need to follow those sources, or at the very least, be very aware of any sort of agenda that a site might have. For example, if I wanted to find evidence that was contrary to a global flood, I would not go to the Answers in Genesis website because they obviously don't believe it. So why would I think that I would find evidence to support a old Earth there, or the non-existence of a flood there? So one needs to be cognizant of any sort of biases that the website you are going to might have, so that you can get factual information. So yes, the information is there. That is one of the positives of the interwebs, is that anyone can do a Google search and find what science has to say on any particular topic. Depending on how esoteric that topic is, you might have to do a little bit more digging, but it's there. You can, in fact, do your own research. You do not need to have alphabet soup behind your name in order to do your own research. And I encourage people who are not specialists or not experts in these things to read up on it. What I do not encourage and what I challenge is that when you do your own research, you then claim to know more about that subject than the experts do. So when you are challenged, when you claim something from what you have learned, and you are challenged by someone who has the letters, then listen to them. Don't dismiss them. And certainly don't tell them that they are wrong on the science, because you don't have the legs to stand on in that regard. Again, appeal to authority or appeal to credentials or whatever. The credentials matter. The credentials indicate a long-term, systematic, rigorous study of the field that they have the letters for. So yes, cars are awesome, I guess. I don't currently have a car. I have a scooter, but yes, I have found that cars are, in fact, awesome. So yeah. Global flood evidence. Look at ancient maps. Okay. Why would I look at ancient maps? The ancient maps that I've looked at, say Amerigo Vespucci, for example, got things way wrong. The ancients didn't really, or even the Renaissance folks, didn't have very good tools in order to actually measure things such as continents or oceans or things of that nature. I've never understood the appeal to antiquity as the way to justify the physical nature of things. That also, speaking of which, so Mr. Duffy's guest, Mr. Duffy's guest has, hold on. No letters behind your name equals no credibility. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that that a person who does not have the degrees, they are less credible than someone who does. Not saying they are not credible. I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to them. But if someone who is an expert in the field contradicts that person, listen to the expert more than you listen to the person who is not accredited. Mr. Duffy's guest is a doctor of some sort, Weissenhoff. I don't know. I'll just call him his guest. His guest went on to say that he knew that that Passover this year was April 15th, and that had been predicted from ancient times. I find that very difficult to believe, because because making calendars is very difficult, because that requires the universe, or at least the solar system, to be regular, to be very regular, to be very ordered, which sadly it is not. We have been dealing with calendar nonsense from the get-go. So the claim that the early Hebrews came up with a system to predict when Passover would be in 2025, that I find hard to believe. His justification for that was, he said, the reason why they were able to do that was because they understood the heliocentric model very, very well. That is demonstrably false. And this is this is not science. No, the early Hebrews, from my understanding, did not believe that the earth was flat. They sure as shit believed that the earth was the center of the universe. There is tons of evidence to suggest that. So this idea that the ancient Hebrews understood the heliocentric model is complete bullshit and needs to be fucking called out. And anyone who, and did Mr. Duffy push back on this? No, he did not. And honestly, and not to sound like a flat earther, you don't actually need an understanding of the heliocentric model in order to make this prediction. Heliocentric, geocentric, it actually doesn't matter. What you need is a very precise record of the tropical year and lunar phases. If you have that record, which is what they did have, that is when you can make those predictions. You don't physically need to understand the model in order to make those sorts of predictions. You do if you want to know about eclipses, specifically where a total eclipse will happen, but not when it comes to figuring out when Passover is going to happen. And again, this is the kind of shit that raises my blood pressure, is that you have someone who is, that this was biblical, like this biblical scholar was attempting to use biblical evidence or a biblical mindset to claim that science is correct when he is wrong on the science. That to me is inexcusable and needs to be called out. And I'm sorry, he was very nice too, but he needs to be called out because it's bullshit. The heliocentric model didn't really take hold until really Kepler. Copernicus was the first person to really throw any credible math at a heliocentric model, but it was really not until Copernicus that was actually taken seriously. Why? Because the observations matched the Kepler's laws far better than anything else. So no, ancient Jews did not believe that the sun was the center of the universe. Yeah. I mean, oops. In one of my actual, learning videos, I talked about Julian date, which is a way to standardize things. And Clive very rightly pointed out, and I haven't actually looked into it, Julian date may actually be off by a day because there is no year zero. But the thing is, it's a way of standardizing basically the calendar system. It is a way of standardizing time measurement without having to worry about calendars. It just is a ticking off of days. So yeah, and that wasn't only that was developed maybe mid 1800s. I'm not entirely certain when Julian date was developed. It may have been 1900s. So again, this idea that the ancient Hebrews have been able to predict dates of religious events accurately for millennia is honestly just ludicrous. Maybe I got that wrong. I said that I claim that he also said that the Jerusalem was the center of the earth, when in fact he apparently said it was the center of the supercontinent. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong again. Maybe that is not what he was actually saying. But Al Tucker, I would highlight it, but Luna is in the way, and so I can't really reach my keyboard. So blame Luna for not. Al, you can blame Luna for having just to read this aloud. I have to say, Rob, I appreciate your lesson on the many ways astronomy has been measured from a few weeks back, showing that even this is new, I guess. What's funny is, no, Luna is awesome. Luna is never bad. No, Luna is awesome. Sorry. So I know I should. I don't like the fact that it raises my blood pressure, and I know it's not healthy for healthy, but and actually I've been going back and forth on this. Is the idea of I feel strongly about these things, so why should I not express them strongly? Why should I not put emotion into how I approach these things? Today, thankfully, I was only in the meeting virtually as opposed to in the room, but the threat assessment team had a representative at our faculty meeting, and his ostensibly his purpose was to talk to us about resources to identify and report people suspected of killing themselves or killing others. And when I brought up the fact that when I brought up that his department or his organization exists, is systemic of the problem, and that I pointed out that if we had adequate psychiatric and healthcare or mental health care on campus, then we wouldn't need him at all, and we wouldn't need to report our students if we suspect that they may be a danger to us or others. He came back and told me that that it was not the university's responsibility to see to the long-term mental health of its students. That it was basically that it was only the only thing that the university was responsible for was crises, was responding to the crises of students. I'm glad I was not in the room, because in the chat I just said this is bullshit, because I could not keep myself from saying it. I could. It was such a repugnant thing to say, and particularly from someone who is in the mental health sphere. To say that, and to say that the type of treatment one gets for congenital heart failure is also the same type of treatment that one gets for mental health, shows a utter lack of understanding of mental health and how it's treated. So my kind of going back to it is I've questioned myself as to why I feel so strongly about this. And people have asked, why does Mr. Duffy bother you so much? And I think I've explained why it bothers me so much. But the question then becomes, do I respond so emotionally to it? And obviously the answer to that question for me now is yes. I need to respond with emotion, with irritation. I hope I am not verging into the realm of disrespectful. I know I was bitter at the very beginning, which was disrespectful. I hope I'm not going into the realm of disrespect. And simply telling someone that their belief system is wrong is not disrespect. In my view. So I hope I'm not disrespecting Mr. Duffy or anyone who believes as he does. But I strongly, strongly disagree with it, and I strongly think that it does harm because of everything else I have seen surrounding those belief systems. It causes marginalization, and it causes bigotry. Or at least it's tied to it. Because what I'm afraid of, and again, maybe I am paranoid, is that someone's going to look at Mr. Duffy and say, "Oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, he doesn't believe the Earth is flat. Oh, he's telling me that the Earth is 10,000 years old. Well, maybe I should listen to him because he's nice, and he obviously is right about the earth being flat. Well, what if he is right about the earth being created in 6 days? That's what I'm afraid of. That is not okay. And that needs to be talked about. That needs to be addressed. And maybe that's a part of a larger conversation. And I think that ties into things like free speech. You know, what should people be allowed to say and whatnot? I definitely think that I'm not endorsing censorship in any way whatsoever, but I am saying that we need to have these conversations, and it is okay that they become heated. It's not okay if they become disrespectful. It's certainly not okay if they become hateful. No one should be threatened. No one should feel as if they are being threatened. People can feel uncomfortable, but they shouldn't feel like they're being threatened. And I know that's a fine line to thread, because we don't really know what other people are feeling unless they tell us. And as an American, as I've found in society, folks are not really all that great in general about communicating how they're feeling. Duffy is a snake, a puppet. Would not go there, Stephanie. I would not say that in any way. I strongly disagree with some of his viewpoints, both from a scientific standpoint and from a moral standpoint. But I would not go so far as to say he's a snake. And again, I don't think that it doesn't really help the conversation, because he's not going to take that well. No one is going to take it well when you insult them or call them that and all that. So that is not what I am advocating. But I think this era of Will Duffy is the greatest because of the Final Fire needs to come to an end. If we continue to talk about Mr. Duffy, we need to talk about his other beliefs that are in no way scientific. Whether or not homosexuality is a choice, that is not scientific. Whether or not the earth is old or new, or if it's been created. And I do not accept that, I could be convinced that I'm wrong. If that were the case, the evidence is there to convince you. This is the same with flat Earth. The evidence for the fact that the Earth is not flat is out there for all to see. The evidence for why young Earth creationists can't work is out there for all to see. The fact that homosexuality is not a choice is out there for all to see. Sadly, there hasn't, as far as I know, there hasn't been a tremendous amount of research on the scientific justification for transgenderism. But from what I have seen, the science, what little science has been done, supports the notion that someone is transgendered. That is something that is real. That is not just some sort of, I want to wear a dress today and go pee in a woman's bathroom or some bullshit. Science backs that up. And what I'm decrying about the lack of scientific research is that there hasn't been enough. There needs to be more about this subject. And I think it's because of people who believe that transgender folks are not a thing, because they, people think that they are just on a whimsy going to go decide to pee sitting down. It's because of that attitude that the research hasn't been done, or at least the funding hasn't been done to that. At least we've seen this with other marginalized groups. We've seen this with homosexuality, and particularly with AIDS. We've seen this with blacks and sickle cell. We have seen this and still see this when it comes to just women's health in general. There's not been enough work done on diseases that specifically affect women and not men. So, for example, well, actually, this is a kind of a counterexample. Something I've thought about is why is, and I know I'm going way the fuck off topic, but why is there a birth control pill for women and not for dudes? Why have we not? Because, if we're relying on the dude to slap it on, yeah, that's a dumb idea. That's just a, let's face it. If you are depending on the dude to take the responsibility to cover the stump, to have love with no glove, it's like a chicken or a fox trusting a fox not to eat chickens in a hen house. It's not a good plan. Not a good plan at all. And having the woman do it, having the impetus be on the woman, is just ridiculous. So why don't we have pills for that for men? I know this is kind of contrary to what I was talking about, but really, what? I don't know. Maybe somebody can invite me or to talk to me about that. Bye, Stephanie. I hope you enjoy your the bonfire. I would love to be sitting in front of the bonfire right now. If you actually believe people are doing this on a whim, then you're clearly been duped. Again, the science is there for people to find. And so if you say that, so if you leave the impetus for me to have to convince you, if you put the impetus on me to convince you of what is scientifically supported, then you're not being genuine. That is a dishonest position to have, because you're really not open to it. Because if you were open to it, then you would do your own research and you would do it properly. So, yeah, I don't buy that argument, because again, who have I heard that argument from many, many times? Flat earthers. So yeah. All right, folks. I think I have gone off on this long enough. And I honestly do not want to have, I don't want to have another one of these streams where I sit here and pontificate on things. If I revisit the subject of Mr. Duffy, of Will Duffy, I'd like to do it by having a conversation with him, which again, I will actively attempt to reach out to him to see if I can schedule that. Or I would also like to talk to Culture Catz. I would also like to talk to Toon or anyone else who has platformed this dude, and to give him any sort of praise, or to say that the final experiment is in fact final. So yeah, because I don't feel, I was going to say I don't feel good about making these videos. That's not entirely true. I think these videos need to be made, but I think that me harping on it over and over again is counterproductive. So Catz is cool. I know Catz is cool. I love me some Catz. So I was, not that it matters, I guess. I was disappointed with how he approached that interview. I understand why he did it. I understand why he kept the interview in the tone that he did. And I'm not exactly criticizing that. What I'm criticizing is that a more pointed conversation, holding him to his feet to the fire on some of the things that he has said, why that interview has not taken place. Turning Turing test, it was today. It was actually about an hour. It ended about an hour and a half ago. Catz may be going live now, talking to other folks. But yeah, essentially, I won't call it a puff piece, as much as I want to. But yeah, it was a nice conversation about Will Duffy's thoughts on the final experiment, how effective it was, would he do anything different? Catz did bring up Duffy's views on creationism and the fact that the Earth, or his belief that the Earth is young, apparently not 6,000 years old, but young. So yeah. All right. So yeah, I would check it out. Definitely check it out. It's worth a watch. All right. Oh, he's live with Tony and others. I will check that out. So, all right, folks. I am Professor Parks, PhD, and I make. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I think I missed something. Judy, forgive. Apologies. 12 euros for Luna and Sunny. Thank you very much for that super chat. They happen so infrequently and I am so full of myself or get so worked up with myself that I fail to see those. But I am Professor Parks, PhD. I make content on astronomy, science skepticism, and mental health. I think I've touched on all three of these in this video. If you like this sort of thing, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to help the observatory, please become please become one of my patrons on Patreon. I think that's somewhere in the doobly-doo below. Most recently, I have put in for purchase some focus masks. Basically, these are plates that you place in front of a telescope that have slots that are oriented in a certain way that create a pattern in the eyepiece and on the camera that allows you to precisely focus. Patron money has gone to purchase those instruments, which I think are very, very bad, are going to help me teach students how to use telescopes in a big way. So if you'd like to support that sort of thing, please consider a patron. If you want the money to go into my grubby little hands, please become a channel member. One of my colleagues, Dr. Peter Plavchan, is the PI for the Landau space mission, where he is setting a satellite up to recalibrate the astronomical photometric system. If you would like news on that, I supply videos, occasionally updates on that mission for members specifically. So yeah, that's about it. So thank you all again for being here, and I want to see if I can actually end the stream. Luna, you're still in the way. Peace out. Clear skies.